Alright, so we're ready to go ahead and start drawing some graphics inside of Illustrator. I'm going to start off by just creating a regular print document with one artboard, click OK, and now I get the screen here. And we're going to start off by using the primitive shape tools inside of Illustrator. Now when I say primitive, I don't mean that they're not modern, I mean that they're creating primitive type shapes, meaning rectangles, squares, circles, so on and so forth. And those can act as the basic building blocks of any illustration. Now once we're comfortable using those tools, we'll move on to using some of the tools that allow us to create freeform graphics. I'm going to start off by creating closed paths. Remember we discussed the ability in Illustrator to have really two types of paths, open paths and closed paths. We're going to start off by creating closed paths, which are ellipses or circles and ovals, rectangles, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go over my toolbar over here, and the first tool I'm going to choose here is the rectangle tool. By the way, you'll notice that these tools that appear inside of the toolbar, some of them have these little black triangles in the lower right hand corner. That identifies that there are more tools hidden behind that tool or grouped with that tool. And the way that you access those is you click and you hold your mouse button down, and then this entire list shows up of all the different closed shape tools that are here. We're going to explore in this particular movie using the rectangle tool, the rounded rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, the polygon tool, and the star tool. The flare tool is completely separate. We'll deal with that another time. By the way, to make it a little bit easier to access these tools, you can move your mouse over here to this bar on the right side, which is called the tear-off panel. And when I let go of that, it turns into this little mini toolbar on its own. So let's start by just drawing a regular rectangle. Now the way that you create a rectangle is very simple. You position your cursor where you want to start the rectangle, and then click and drag down and to the right. Notice, by the way, the Smart Guides is letting me know the dimensions of my rectangle as I'm drawing it. And an important thing here is I'm not letting go of the mouse, and this is going to be key as we begin to draw other graphics as well. Don't let go of the mouse, because once you do, you now commit that graphic as the way that it is. Of course, you can always change things later on inside of Illustrator, but it's more difficult to do so. For example, you'll notice now that I'm drawing this rectangle and it's originating from the upper left-hand corner. Well, if I decide that I want to reposition this graphic somewhere else, I'll hold down the spacebar key. Again, my mouse button is still down, and now I can kind of freeze the rectangle on its own, reposition it somewhere else in my document, and then when I release the spacebar, I can continue drawing that rectangle. Again, the key here is not to let go of the mouse button as I do that. Now, there are certain keyboard shortcuts that are very important to know when you're drawing graphics. Let me delete this for a second here. For example, as I'm clicking and dragging my rectangle, if I decide that I want it to be a perfect square, meaning that the width and height are exactly the same, I'll hold down the Shift key to constrain the proportions. Now you'll also notice, as I said before, that the rectangle is being drawn from the upper left-hand corner. Say you wanted to draw the rectangle out from its center. Well, hold the Option key down, and then when you click and drag, you see that the rectangle is actually being drawn out from the center point. Finally, if you want to create a rectangle or a square to an exact dimension, rather than draw it out and try to do it by eye, you could basically specify any shape numerically. Let me show you how to do that. Simply take your cursor with your rectangle tool and just click and release the mouse once anywhere on the artboard. In doing so, a dialog will appear where you can then enter the width and the height. So for example, I may want to type in, let's say, 2 inches by 3 inches. Again, notice that even though points is specified now as the measurement system for Illustrator's document right now, I can still type in either IN for inches or just type in the inch mark that way, and Illustrator, as I hit the Tab key, will automatically figure out the conversion for me. When I click OK, Illustrator now creates the rectangle at that exact dimension. Let's take a quick look at some of the other tools that are here as well. I'm going to press Command A or Control A to select everything, press Delete. I'm going to go to the rounded rectangle tool. The only difference between the rounded rectangle tool and the rectangle tool is that the corners are rounded. Now as I click and drag, notice that these corners are rounded. I can use, again, with my finger still pressed down on the mouse button, I have not released the mouse yet, I can use the up arrows and the down arrow on my keyboard to adjust the radius or how round those particular corners are. Notice right now, I'm tapping the up arrow key on my keyboard, that I have very rounded corners, and if I use the down arrow key on my keyboard, I can see that right now the radius is getting smaller. I'll release the mouse, and now that goes ahead and commits that particular shape. Now again, if I hit the Delete key now and I just click once and release the mouse right away, I can specify values for the width, height, and for the corner radius directly. Let me click Cancel. Let's go on to the next shape. When drawing ellipses, which are circles or ovals, again, I could do the exact same thing I've been doing before with the rectangle tool. Click and drag to draw a circle or an oval from the upper left-hand corner. The Shift key constrains it to a perfect circle. Option key or Alt key on Windows constrains it to draw out directly from the center. By the way, you can hold down the Option key and the Shift key simultaneously while you're dragging to draw a perfect circle out from the center. Again, there's no reason why you can't combine these keys. In fact, I'll even add the space bar to move my circle somewhere else, and then release the space bar and then continue to drag and draw this way. Again, the key is not to let go of the mouse when I do that. Again, I can click once anywhere on my artboard to specify the exact width and height settings for either a circle or an oval just by clicking once on the artboard and releasing the mouse immediately. Let's take a look at the polygon tool. The polygon tool allows me to create a polygon shape, which means that I can have anything from 3 up to more sides than that, but each of the sides are always going to be equal in length. So for example, right now I could use the down arrow key. Again, I'm not letting go of the mouse button as I do this. The down arrow key, hit it all the way to as low as it will go, which is now 3 sides, which will give me a perfect equilateral triangle. Plus, I can go ahead and I could type the up arrow on my keyboard and add as many sides as I'd like to. Let me come back down to just 3 sides for the triangle for a minute here, because I want to show you I can hold the shift key down as I do this. The shift key will make it so that the triangle at least has the base constrained on that 90-degree angle on the bottom. So again, I can do that very easily. Again, holding down the spacebar will allow me to go ahead and reposition that particular shape as I'm drawing it. Again, I'm not letting go of the mouse when I do that. As soon as I do release the mouse, I can no longer change the number of sides or anything else for that matter. Again, I'll delete that right now on my keyboard. And what I'll do is I'll create a star. Let's see how we create a star inside of Illustrator. The star tool is pretty cool. Click and drag outwards. Again, don't let go of the mouse. You can rotate the star as you rotate the mouse around. Hold down the shift key, and basically the star is always going to sit straight. You can hold down the option key, and that creates something which we call aligning shoulders. Notice how the 2 arms, I guess you can say, of the star right now are in alignment, and now they're not. So I'm holding down the option key or the alt key on Windows to align the shoulders of the star. Again, I could use the up arrow and the down arrow on my keyboard to add or remove the number of points on my star. And I could also hold down the command key to adjust the delta, or the difference between the inner radius of the star and the outer radius of the star, which basically makes either not a very pointy star or a very pointy star. And I can go ahead and I can adjust this as I'm working the star. Again, once I let go of the mouse, that means I've now committed the shape. I can no longer make changes to it other than the regular editing tools, which we'll deal with in a later chapter. So that's how you start creating basic primitive shapes in Illustrator using these tools. Now, in the next movie, we'll explore creating open paths in the same method.